Yeah, I could paint that in a day. Wait! And paint it in a day he did. That's right, ladies and gentlemen of esteemed culture. I painted the blue lady from Elden Ring because I'm an intelligence simp. Which makes perfect sense because look at her. Look at my wife. Okay, now stop looking at her. Jokes aside, Elden Ring was a stunning experience. Although there were moments that filled me with rage and got me to start classifying things around me as throwable or not throwable, I do think it was still worth it in the end just to experience the world. And what better way is there to immortalize my experience than to paint a figure and stock my shelves with Elden Ring merch? Before I get started, just a quick reminder to like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot, and if you like this kind of content, you can see more of it. Alright, so without further ado, here's how I painted Ranni the Witch from Elden Ring.
Well then, shall we?
Hello everyone, I am It When It Do. Welcome to my studio. And we're jumping right into this project with the skin tone. Based on the renders by CA3D Studio, I went with a light blue for the color. Wait, what do you think you're doing? Oh, well that's better I guess. You better do a second coat though. Because this is a speed project, I broke this down to having just a flat tone. Though I did feel like I painted it pretty dark to begin with, so later I paint back over it, trying to make it more pale. It still doesn't really line up with the renders made by CA3D Studio, but, you know, blue is blue, man. So here's where I start applying purple to the hair. I do this mainly to get a darker color to contrast the pale skin that I'm trying to get. I agree that it looks a little bit funky right now, but I do have a plan that's going to make it look better later. My source? Trust me, bro. Hello, it is I, Editor Man. So whenever I was painting this, some of the parts didn't get recorded because of storage issues. But the main things I want to point out right now are the face and the hair. When it comes to the face, I believe I did the pupil quite nicely. The face specifically, I don't normally get recorded very well because I hold the face like an inch from my eyeball. But I think that iris turned out really nicely, and so did the insignia on her other eye. As for the hair, I used a feather brush. The reason for using the feather brush is more for like a texture, to give it a coarse look, make it look like actual fibers of hair. And to accomplish this look, I took some white paint on the end of this brush and I just brush in the direction of the hair. So up here, I'll brush down, and then when it curves here, I'll try to follow that direction and then come back this way to end it off. So yeah, you remember when I said trust me when it came to the hair and I painted it purple? Well, this is what I meant. I have this darker undertone color. I didn't really get the inside because you don't see it, so I'm not worried about it. But this outer layer, the white didn't seep into these crevices here, so you still get that dark undertone when you're looking at this. Boop! Now, when it came to painting the robes, it was pretty simple. White. But I wanted to make it a little bit more interesting than just white, so what I ended up doing was taking a light blue and dry brushing that onto hard edges, like the knee or some creases that are in the clothing. And that helps accentuate a worn or weathering effect in the robes. And the same process gets used for the hat. Hello, it is I again. One other part that I didn't get recorded was the underside of the hat here. You were able to see me paint the upper side and the underlayer of the snowflake pattern here. It's all white. I wanted to keep a white on in between all these snowflakes here. So to avoid putting any paint in these cracks, I used a dry brush, which I repurposed from an old brush. Took some light blue and gently brushed it along the brim from inside to outside, trying to get that nice, not gradient, but even coat towards the outside. I even applied it a little bit to the brim here to make it look a little bit more interesting to look at whenever you're looking at the figure dead on. You can kind of see more of a transition here as well. Then once I did that, I took a darker blue, I put it in the center, more centralized, and I brushed not as far. I kept brushing out though to give it a nice glowing effect, trying not to touch all this lighter blue out here. And as I mentioned before, it does give that nice glow-ish effect underneath the brim here. Boop. And now it's time for stage work. For the stage, I start with a black wash to concentrate the shadow areas in the rocks. It will give these parts more depth when I dry brush the gray tones over it. I actually do the same thing for the coat as well. I put a black wash over all the fur. The only difference is that I don't dry brush the white on. I feather brush that, just like I did with the hair, to give it a more bristly texture. And with that, since this process is relatively straightforward, we can now just sit back and enjoy. As I previously mentioned, this is where I start painting that light gray. I start dry brushing that over the black wash that I put on. This is actually my favorite section because as I add the lighter tones of gray to the rock, it starts to feel like it's coming to life, more tangible. You can feel how cold the rock is, you can see the actual textures to it. You can almost feel it without having to touch it. And I think I did a pretty good job creating that. For this part, I kept it simple and just painted some brown onto the leather parts of the coat. And I feel like that just makes it a little bit nicer, something different to look at than the grays and whites that you see throughout the piece. And now we're done. So it's time for the final reveal. That concludes my day-long paint of Ranni the Witch. Though she was relatively simple, I think she turned out really well, and I had a lot of fun making her. This figure is modeled by CA3D Studios, and they have plenty of other figures, and honestly, they have a lot of Elden Ring figures too, so if you're interested in that, go check them out. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you haven't seen my other video yet, check that out. With that, I'll see you guys for the next figure. Bye-bye.